Conversation series. I'm Brendan Mitchell, and today I'm very honoured to have Rosie Wilson here with me. Rosie's a leading educator in the UK and also a senior trainer across a number of areas. Welcome, Rosie.
Hello, it's nice to be here.
That's great to have you. And whereabouts did you grow up in the UK?
I grew up in a small town near Bristol, and it was in the countryside but near the city, so I had the benefit of both the city and the countryside.
And did you attend a city or a country school growing up?
It was a school within my town. There were two schools in my town, and I attended a comprehensive school in Keynsham, my town.
And what's a comprehensive school? Is it a grammar school or
No, different to a grammar school. So it didn't have a test to come in. It took everybody from the community. It had a catchment and it took everybody from that area. And so we had a lot of mixed classes, people from different backgrounds, but still from a small town community.
Now, coming from Australia and New Zealand, I'd call that a public school. Would that be?
Yeah, that's right, a public school, yeah.
Okay, and then the grammar school structure in the UK, what's that? Is that a selective entry test, is it? There?
I don't have a lot of personal experience of it, but as I understand it, students take an 11 plus a test, and if they pass, they go to the grammar school. So I have relatives in my family, my nieces are taking the 11 plus in their town, and there are pockets of grammar schools, just like there are pockets of middle schools, but they're not common everywhere.
Okay, similar to New Zealand, if you like, with your boys' high schools and your girls' high schools,
right.
And
yeah.
some of your selective government high schools in Australia. Now, when did you know that you wanted to be a teacher, and in particular a secondary school English teacher?
After university, when I had finished my undergraduate degree in English Literature and Language, I took a second gap year. I'd taken one before already, and I took a second gap year, and I went to Japan on the Japan Exchange Teaching Programme. It's called the JET programme.
Yes, yep.
And I was teaching English as a second or other language. I had a job that was nicknamed a one-shot because I used to visit 40 schools on rotation across primary, secondary and special schools. And I would play with English language with them. So they had an English language programme, but I came in to inject enthusiasm and a real experience of meeting somebody. Before I went to Japan, I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher at all, because I didn't think teaching was fun or challenging. My experience of high school led me to believe that teaching was delivering content, telling people what you know so that they would know it too. And going to Japan and thinking about how to make English fun gave me a different view, but I still wasn't committed. And I came back to the UK and I did some teaching English to asylum seekers the next year. And during that year, living in Birmingham, quite a diverse city, I felt that bringing an awareness of different cultures and awareness of different life worlds, I would call them, could make me a good teacher. And I could do more than just teach content. I could give people opportunities, and I could enhance their life chances and give them access to lives that they might not have otherwise. So that's when.
Yeah, I think you're a super teacher, and your students will be really lucky, and the people who participate in your programs as well.
Thank you.
I want to go back to Japan. Japan interests me. Were you in a primary school, a high school, or a language school, or what was the setup when you did the JET?
My workplace was a board of education. It was a town called Matsumoto in the Japan Alps, about 3 hours from Tokyo. And so most people on the JET programme were placed in one school.
Yep.
And that's good because you develop relationships with your colleagues and with your students, but then not every school had an assistant English teacher from a native English-speaking country. So I scooped up all the schools that didn't have that. And that was good in a different way because they were grateful that I came because they didn't see me very often, and perhaps I was more of a novelty, so it was fun. But it meant that I did a lot of things like self-introductions and assemblies where I was asked, what is your favourite colour? And do you have a boyfriend? And things like that. So I did a lot of repeating the same thing, but it was always warm and enjoyable.
Oh, fantastic. And you stayed there for 1 year?
Yeah, that's right,
Yeah. Now, I see that you've done some media and citizenship prior to teaching in these areas. Did you do any additional training?
Well, in my teaching qualification, I did a postgraduate certificate of education at Birmingham University, and it was English and citizenship. I could choose an elective, so on my certificate it says English and citizenship in brackets, as it was a secondary PGCE. I did some of that as part of my PGCE, but also media studies is considered often a part of English. So where media studies isn't happening as a separate subject, often English teachers are teaching media. We had training within our English PGCE.
So your postgraduate certificate in education was in secondary schooling,
That's
but
right,
you've
yeah.
also taught in primary schools, yes?
Yes, yeah.
How does the licensing work out? Does the PGCE qualify for both, or?
It did, but the
Yep.
governors of the school need to make the ultimate decision. So,
Okay.
so the governors would make a recruitment decision and they had to decide what they would do about that. Your continuing professional development is important to this. It's important to what you were saying about media and citizenship, and also
Yep.
to the primary thing, because the continuing professional development system in the UK currently is done through performance management, it's called, and you would identify targets to improve. So one of my targets as a new teacher was to enhance my media understanding, and I was given support through my colleagues for that. And then when I moved into a primary setting, one of my targets was to look at maths, because I hadn't done any maths on my English PGCE. And so again, my colleagues supported me, or I was given adequate training within the continuing professional development system for teachers.
Now, when you were teaching in Birmingham, I see that was a secondary school.
That's right, yeah.
Yep. Were they teaching citizenship before you arrived at the school?
Citizenship had become a subject, but the teaching in the school wasn't where they wanted it to be. So the leadership team were keen that I would share my knowledge and expertise, and sometimes I would do that just within my English department, and sometimes I would do that across the school. But I think that secondary schools are challenging places to share expertise like that. I was a new teacher, so even though I had new knowledge from my university that the teachers there didn't have, perhaps that knowledge wasn't received by people or accepted by them. So it helped me learn about change, that people find change hard, and they find it hard to learn from people who have a lower status than them, or people who feel threatening. So I think that's always been part of my career.
Yes. Now, what about the demographics at the school in Birmingham?
Yeah, so it's in Sparkbrook in Birmingham. It's a very vibrant, we would call it a springboard community. So new arrivals to the UK from Pakistan, Bangladesh, Somalia, the Yemen, Qatar, and many other places would come to that area of Birmingham and work there, and then establish themselves and then move on to other areas in Birmingham. So it was we were always getting new arrivals, but we also had established second generation families as well. So it was very vibrant, and 97% of the school community were operating in English as a second or other language.
No, yes. Now, how did you move into, or how did you discover P4C?
Well, before I discovered P4C, I got involved in global learning and in citizenship training and community cohesion training. And I became involved in critical pedagogies to support these areas. And P4C came quite late to me, really, I think. And at first, I heard about it through criticism. I heard about P4C through people saying, there's this thing, P4C, and talking about it in an offhand or not respectful manner. And so I was interested to find out about it. And a colleague of mine came and ran an inquiry with my children in my primary school. And from that moment, I think I felt positively about it. I felt excited that it had a lot of potential and that I could bring my previous interests to P4C to think carefully about how to be a good facilitator.
Well, you're a super facilitator, no doubt about that. And I'm sure your students, how did your young students in your primary schools take to P4C initially?
They really liked it. They wanted to do it all the time and not do other things. And so I had to support them to accept we can't do it all the time. And we talked a lot about participation, about moments when you can lead and moments when you can't lead as children. So it helped them, it opened up lots of discussions about power with them, as well as some really thoughtful inquiries which didn't stop when the inquiry structure stopped, which went into the classroom or went into the playground. And so, yeah, they loved it.
And did you find yourself embedding some of the P4C pedagogy throughout the other curriculum areas you were teaching them?
Definitely, yeah, definitely. So I was responsible for developing an outdoor space, and we wanted there to be a space to do P4C outside, and we also wanted that the school garden, to be a stimulus for our P4C, for example. Things that I did like running the school production then filtered back into P4C, and we would just use it as a stimulus. But I feel that P4C is a classroom pedagogy and practice, but it is also about how we work with colleagues and how we learn together as colleagues. So I think it goes into school systems as well, not just in the classroom.
Now, is the Going for Gold schools, the Education Endowment Foundation, is that part of P4C, or is that something separate or aligned or connected?
So SAPRE, the UK body for P4C, are running that project. And the Education Endowment Foundation have funded it. And there is another partner involved as well, the NFER, doing the research, the National Foundation for Education Research. The Going for Gold schools within that project are all working together to implement P4C. But some schools choose to do Going for Gold outside of that project. And it's a pathway that a school goes on to embed P4C through an award system.
Okay, so it's whole school rather than individual teacher.
Yes, my experience of it, I'm new to Going for Gold. I've only been doing it for a year, but my experience of it so far is really positive. And it's giving P4C a status straight away within the school. It's showing that the leadership value it. It's giving teachers permission to embed P4C. And it's helping them see that they're on a journey. And in my work with my organisation, learning journeys are really important. And I think that Going for Gold is seeming to be a really great learning journey.
I'm interested to learn more about learning journeys, and is that part of Lifeworlds learning, is it?
It's one of the metaphors that we use in our professional learning. So Lifeworlds Learning is my organisation. We're a social enterprise, or our structure in the UK is community interest company. So we have to state a community interest, which is supporting learning communities. And that means that any profits that we generate are redirected to supporting learning communities, which gives us a lot of flexibility to provide training to somebody that can't afford it, or to run a project that needs to happen but isn't being funded. So we feel that it's really important that we set up as a corporation, as a social enterprise, because it gives us more flexibility than being within an institution or being a charity. And we feel that risks in education and risks in innovating in education are important to be able to take. So it gives us that flexibility, being small. We would like to use the metaphor of bees. And so bees kind of pollinate and take from place to place, and we hope that all of the partners and projects we work on can kind of cross-pollinate and enrich each other.
What are some of the training areas?
We do training in global learning. Our primary training is called Learning Through Values. Okay. And so it's using an understanding of the psychology of values and how they operate and what some of the different values are in order to help schools and other learning communities think about what kind of organisation they want to be and what kind of learners they want, and help them get there. And we definitely position ourselves as learners as well as trainers and facilitators.
UK organisation, but does it have global application as well?
Yeah, definitely. We work with global partners quite a bit, and we draw from global research quite a bit as well.
Yes.
Especially with the values work. We've worked in China, we've worked in Poland, we've worked in India, Dubai, Qatar and Saudi Arabia now. And we try to take from each international opportunity as much as we can give, so that we can then use that to take back to UK learning communities as well.
That's fantastic. Okay, I'd like to thank Rosie for her time today. Now, if you'd like to know more about Lifeworlds Learning, you can see the website at the bottom of the screen here now, and feel free to click on. It's really interesting, and I'm sure you will see and learn about some innovative ideas through that website, and perhaps if you want to contact them, you can do that too.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, yeah.